What's going on, Summoners? I'm Kangas, and today I'm talking about one that a lot of you have asked me on Discord, how to choose your best champion on Wild Rift. But before we get into that, quickly, our question of the day. What do you think Riot has done the best so far regarding developing Wild Rift? For me, I think they've done a great job updating all the character models and making the Rift feel fresh again. After playing on the same map on the PC version for 5 years, it's nice to see a shinier coat of paint. But let me know your answers in the comments down below, and let's get into the video.
Now, why is choosing a main champ so important, and why should you decide on one? Wild Rift, and MOBAs in general, can be very overwhelming to get into. There's so much information at once, and no single game ever plays the exact same. By having a main, it allows players to learn in a more controlled environment. Spamming the same champ means you won't have to worry so much about learning to play the champion, and can therefore focus on the other aspects of the game. In this video, I'm going to mention the word enjoy quite a bit in regards to choosing a champion. This is because enjoying playing a champion is really essential to deciding a main, because the champion is potentially the character that you'll be spamming for hours, if not days and weeks on end. If the champion's core gameplay mechanics revolve around a style that you don't enjoy, well, you'll just end up disliking the game. Decide on a champion that you find fun, and one that you can play happily. When considering what champion to main, the first question you really have to ask yourself is, what playstyle do you enjoy the most? Maybe you like to run at the enemy head first, bumping into as many as you can while damaging them and stalling them for long enough for your team to back you up. Or maybe you like to annoy the enemy team by disappearing into stealth, sneaking up on enemy backlines, or assassinating unsuspecting targets. Or perhaps you enjoy the game most when you're giving first aid to your teammates, trying to be as helpful to as many players as you can. There are many different, very viable playstyles on Wild Rift, and identifying which style you enjoy the most is the first step to choosing a champion. Once you get a vague idea of what playstyle you enjoy the most, think about which champions encompass that specific playstyle. Chances are there are many different champions that serve that purpose, giving you various options to choose from. The next step is to narrow the champion selection down even further. Think about the type of mechanics that you enjoy the most, not just the playstyle. In essence, what kind of skills are you most inclined to? Some champions revolve more heavily on landing skill shots, while others center around auto-attack animation canceling. Another huge mechanical difference is melee versus ranged. Melee champion mechanics differ drastically from ranged ones, with ranged champions specifically prioritizing kiting. Auto-attack reliant champions play differently from casters, who rely on their abilities to deal damage. There are also very mobile champions who utilize dashes and speed buffs, and there are some champions who rely solely on their natural walking speed to move about the map. Think about which of these mechanics are the most satisfying for you and the most natural. Take, for example, you like to dash around while auto-attack animation canceling. Champions like Wukong and Fiora might be great fits for you. But maybe you dislike melee champions and would rather opt for a ranged champ. In that case, Vayne would be the perfect champ to main. Narrowing down these mechanics greatly aids in deciding a main champion for you. And if you're new to the game and you're not too sure about which mechanics are best for you, try thinking about what kind of game genres you have played before. These can also help you decide on choosing an initial kit to look at for a champion. Maybe you come from a shooter background and just love to spam gunfire. These are games like Call of Duty, CSGO, or even PUBG. Chances are you enjoy shooting at long range, so you'll enjoy marksman champions, so try those out. Or maybe you play a lot of fighting games like Tekken and Mortal Kombat and are used to mechanically outwitting individual opponents. Well, then brawler melee champions, particularly in the Baron lane, would be the best fits for you, as they're the most similar to the mindset and mechanics of a fighting game. And I'm also guessing that a lot of you viewers have come from a different MOBA mobile game, so in that case, think about the characters that you played in those games and find champions similar to their playstyle on Wild Rift. Chances are, for whatever main you had in a different MOBA game, Wild Rift has one that mirrors them or is at least similar enough. For example, Layla from Mobile Legends plays very similar to Jinx from Wild Rift. Adagio players from Vainglory might find their home playing Sona in Wild Rift. Additionally, there are champions with a very high skill cap. In essence, they're rather difficult to play, but very rewarding to master. Click here to see a list of champions and encompass this. Maining these champions allows for fancier plays and more potential to awe your enemy and teammates. If this is something that you like doing in a game and one of your goals while playing, definitely look into the more technically advanced champions to main. On the other side, if you're more like me, there's also more methodical ways of playing. Perhaps you want to focus more on the strategic aspects of the game rather than fancy showmanship. In that case, looking to play in champions with strong roaming abilities and crowd control, as these two variables play a huge impact on the flow of a game. Champions are quite expensive on Wild Rift and are quite the time investment to purchase. All champions are valued the same in the shop, and it takes a solid dozen or so games to save up enough blue essence. So instead of buying a champion that you've never played before and you're quite uncertain about whether you'll actually like or not, be sure to utilize the free champion rotation to sample the champion out first. This gives you hands-on experience rather than having to purely speculate whether you'll enjoy playing the champ. These rotations change quite frequently, so be sure to stay attentive to the changes every week and try out new champions before committing to a single one. And the next step is pretty important. Determine your goal for playing Wild Rift. Are you playing to climb, to be the best player that you can be? And is winning the ultimate goal of playing Wild Rift? Or do you simply want to have fun playing the game, regardless of whether you win or lose? This next section will cover choosing a main depending on those playing to win. Because of the balance updates and itemizations that are trending on Wild Rift, certain champions are just stronger in the meta than others. And if you're curious to learn more, click here to see our champion tier list. For those who care immensely about winning, finding a champion relatively high up on the tier list would serve in your best interest. Simply put, maining these champions over others is almost guaranteed to win you more games, or at least make winning those games less stressful. This is not to disregard those who want to play champions lower on the tier list though, as there's always a place for a certain pick in Wild Rift. The higher tier picks are just more viable in most matchups, while lower tier picks are more dependent on team compositions. Understanding at which point of the game you play best is also important in choosing a main champion. Different champions have different power spikes throughout the game. Certain champions play exceptionally well in the early game, but will fall off later. These champions tend to be the lane bullies and play exceptionally in small matchups rather than in the team fights. Some champions play poorly in the early game, but evolve into team fighting monsters that change the tides of an entire fight with a single ability. Understanding which portion of the game you want to impact is the most essential to maximizing the champion you pick. For those who enjoy playing for the early game, check out our list of the 6 best champions in the early game. Additionally, if maximizing winning is your priority, you may need to find at least 2 champions to main for at least 2 lanes in the game. One champion that you like to play, and one champion that counters the counter of that champion. Having these 2 champion options for a specific lane ensures that you are prepared for whatever circumstances that you find yourself in champion select. And with a lack of role selection in Wild Rift, you won't always get the lane that you want, especially if you're queuing up for anything besides support. So prepare a backup main champion for another lane as insurance. This will definitely take more time and commitment, but for those trying to climb, this is crucial to succeeding in ranked. But for those playing solely for fun and want to choose a lower tier champion to main, you won't win as many games as when you main an overpowered meta champion. But that's alright. If you enjoy the champion and want to keep playing them, don't hesitate to lock them in. Unless of course the role you want is already taken, don't be that one guy that just goes double mid, forcing your teammates to adjust. And even if your champion is weak in the meta at the moment, they'll eventually re-enter the mainstream meta as new patches come out. And next up, what I consider a very important aspect of maining a champion, other people don't care as much, but I think it's cool, the aesthetics of the champion. Now, this is logically the least important to those looking only to win, but for many players, it's the most important aspect. Personally, I love playing Yordles. I don't know why, they're so little, so cute, and it just feels like when you pop off on them that you're doing something special. But for you, maybe you like the idea of being insane, of playing a psychopath on the Wild Rift. Well, Jinx is a certifiably insane gunner who loves to laugh maniacally while blowing things up. Singed is a mad scientist who lost his sanity and can be seen farting all around the map, snaking up the enemy team with his toxic gas. Or if you're 100% committed to the sentiment of being a psychopath, you can just main Yasuo. Really won't be a ProGuides video without mentioning him at least once. Maybe you like the Void-themed characters, maybe you like the Shurima-themed characters. Whatever the aesthetic of the character is, if you like how they look, then try them out. Maybe you'll like their playstyle too. As important gameplay and mechanics are for champions, Wild Rift's characters are built with extensive lore and characterizations inherent from League of Legends PC. All these champions have a unique backstory behind them which aid in their playstyle and aesthetics. And for those who enjoy identifying with their champion, choosing the one that aligns with the traits that you desire might just be the perfect way to pick a new main. In the quest to find a new main champion, there's a chance that you'll instantly fall in love. A magical connection can form between you and the champion, but you can't seem to pinpoint why exactly you love them. During your first attempt playing the champion, for one reason or another, you have the most fun that you've ever had on Wild Rift. Is it the allure of their voice, serenading you as you murder others on the Rift? Or maybe their playstyle just feels like your alter ego put on display in the game. There's many logical step-by-step processes of choosing a main, but don't let these steps that we talked about disregard the emotional and psychological stirrings that a champion may incite. If you really love the champion, despite not being a complete natural at them, it's perfectly fine to main them anyway.
If you're still struggling to find your main even after this video, then check out some of our other content on the channel. We got videos that discuss the best early game champions, a guide on how to choose your main role, and even a tier list for those of you looking to main the overpowered picks and climb the ranked ladder. Also remember to like the video, sub to the channel, and answer our question of the day in the comments down below. That's it for today though, so best of luck on the Rift, stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time. But before we get into that, our question of the day. What do you think is right, we gotta